If you're a builder, remodeler, trade partner, architect, designer looking to grow your business, expand your network, and learn from some of the best minds in the industry, then you need to be at the Contractor Coalition Summit. It will be held November 6th through 9th in Charlotte, North Carolina, and this is not your typical conference. The Contractor Coalition Summit is built around real conversations, real relationships, and real strategies that you can take back and implement immediately. You'll connect with top performing contractors from across the country, hear from industry leaders, and gain insights on leadership, operations, sales, marketing, culture, profitability, and AI. Whether you're looking to scale your business, improve your systems, or simply surround yourself with people who are pushing the industry forward, this event is for you. We will see you November 6th through 9th, Charlotte, North Carolina. Go to www.contractorcoalitionsummit.com and register and sign up.
To have my 5-year-old son remind me of that multiple times. You're too tired. You never play with us. Look me in the eyes and just like gut punch. Be like, Dad, you're never here. And even when you are, you're on your phone or your computer.
Well, excited for the podcast today. We have the man, the myth, the legend, Gabe Norcross.
Thanks for having me, Brad.
Yeah, with Norcross Builders. Welcome. It's we just had a little bit of time in Nashville not too long ago.
I know, we keep seeing each other and the gaps in between keep getting shorter and shorter. So I dig it.
Yeah. So how's things been? I mean, you're one of the unique guests in the sense that, you had this career in the Bay Area, you move out to Louisville. That's a big change, Kentucky from California.
Yeah, it's been an adjustment. There is definitely, they do things different out here. Building practices, building science, budgets of projects, expectations. Yeah. So it's been a journey kind of navigating that. But
we'll come back to the cost thing, but when you say like just building science, what do you know is different, and the construction types from, California to where you're at?
I think I noticed first was that I would assume that building materials that I could just go to the lumberyard and grab off the shelf are special order here. I would be like, oh, I need, 3 hold downs, and I would just go to the lumberyard and grab them. And here it's like, we don't know what those are. The guys at the desk don't understand, like, oh, that's special order Simpson. You got to go talk to this person. And so
you act like they don't have earthquakes in Louisville or something.
They have pretty strong winds. It's actually on one of the largest fault lines, like in the country. There's a huge fault line underneath Louisville, but it doesn't shake as much. And so I can't react to situations as fast. It does take more planning. Just a solid core door, which is standing up right there. That took 2 weeks to get, which I could go buy off the shelf. And so I just have to be farther ahead. It's good practice, but I have to just be farther ahead think farther ahead on my scheduling, even small projects, just something that's you can knock out in a few days. It takes more planning than I'm used to. And I'm introducing materials to my projects that my subs have never used or understand how to use them or the application process and what the bigger picture is, because they've never been asked to do this by the builders in this area. And so I kind of, in the last 3 years, I've taken it upon myself to continue to educate the subs I'm working with on better ways to do it, best practices. And it's moving in the right direction. They kind of understand my expectations now, but there's still a learning curve for sure.
Are there any specifics, like when certain materials that, your trades are not accustomed to?
Tyvek is the basic, WRB. And, they staple it on and move on. And so the mindset around, hey, we're going to use a zip product and tape the seams, they're like, oh, it's too expensive. They've already made the mind up for the client that it's too expensive to use a little bit better product. And then I have a project specifically now that's a cedar house. It's a massive house on the river, got pelted by a flood and hail, and so we had to replace all the cedar on the backside of this house. We took it off. There was Tyvek. It was ripped everywhere. And so we tore all the sheeting off, was water damaged over the years by a very prominent builder in town, which is like, and it was his personal house. And so to see all these, there's like no flashings on windows. Like it was just on plywood, no caulking, just nailed to plywood. It was wild. And so I went to the lumberyard. I said, hey, I want to have a peel and stick adhesive backed it's Benjamin Obike blue skin. And they're like, we don't carry that. We can't order it. We don't know where to get it. So I called another supplier, and they said, you know what? We had some guy order it 2 years ago, and it's sitting in the back of our lot. No one's ever used it. And I'm like, well, I'll buy it. So I started buying it, and I was the only one who was buying it for a year. And then I went there maybe 4 months ago, and a bunch of it had disappeared. And I'm like, oh my goodness, there was like 100 rolls. And there was one pallet left. And I'm like, how much will you sell this to me? And they said 25 a roll. And I bought everything they had and shoved it in my warehouse. It's $3.50 a roll. I bought it for $25 a roll. So I sold 3 on the first product and paid for the entire bundle. So, but like nobody uses it. And like that is just second nature from building on the coast and building in San Francisco. And I get into a lot of conversations about structural framing, that it's unnecessary and, it's overkill. But when you're used to doing it that way your entire life, I'm not going to build any less than that, no matter where I'm at. So, but we get a lot of the Tornado Alley has moved up into Kentucky. So we get some strong winds here. So now I just, factor in wind load instead of uplift.
Right. It's interesting. It's funny you say that because, I was just had we used a new concrete guy on the last project we did. And first time working with him, great company. I mean, he's in his 60s, right? And long story short, they, in our like SOP, like our standard operating procedures, we have a vapor barrier, right? It's like for us, we're always going to put down a nice vapor barrier where, just for what it's worth, we do a lot with Stego, right? So Stego is typically going to put down, a vapor barrier. On my house, we did like a Pango wrap where it's, termite proof because we have like subterranean termites. Yeah. And so that's something that's just like a staple of what we do, just a standard. And they made a mistake on the spec and even installing it. And I remember talking to him like, bro, dude, like this is standard, man. This is like what we do. We talked about this beforehand. My estimators talked about it in the contract. And he's like, Brad, I've never done a vapor barrier. Like I've been doing concrete for 40 years at Phoenix. No builders ask for vapor barrier. And I know most don't, which is just wild to me, right? Because even in Arizona, like it, there's no sunlight under that slab. I mean, it sees water. We still get rain. We know how this goes. And same for you. It's nothing against staple Tyvek. I mean, but the reality is, there just has to be a training. And I feel like in any territory, it's a tough thing to. One of the biggest struggles we have as general contractors is we assume they know. We may talk with the owners or the sales rep, but it's the team in the field that just often goes back to human nature, what they're accustomed to, and they blow and go,
Yeah, I think there's a lot of assumption on that the product is going to solve all the problems if I just apply it, and not there's a system to the process with the product as well. And if that's not communicated, and on this specific product or project, I did not communicate that to the siding installers because I assumed that they had installed a peel and stick on the wall. And so we were fighting impending rain. I mean, that's literally every day here. It's like you don't know when it's going to rain. And so they were trying to get this up on the wall. It's a 3-story house. And they went right over the $250,000 worth of Marvin windows that had been replaced. And they pulled the back off and just went right over the windows. And so the clients were looking through, there's 15 windows. They're looking at just like this blue reflection for a week because then we got an ice storm. We couldn't get up on scaffolding. But by the time we got back up there and they took the blue skin off around the window, the adhesive had stuck to the extruded aluminum frames. And I've spent 4 days with cleaner and 100 razor blades and scraping this and not trying to take the finish off, because it has just baked itself on there. And they've done another project since. I'm like, we're cutting around the windows. We don't need to. The windows have already been flashed. This is a second layer of flashing. We just need to go up to the side of the windows and cut it off. Like you don't have to run it over. But because they installed Tyvek, you could just run Tyvek over a window and cut it out later, which is what they're used to. So they're, this product must be the same application. And that's just the latest example that cost me 4 days of my time up on a ladder. So yeah, it's the those little things. And so, every one of these projects, I learn a little bit more, and like, okay, over communicate with everybody, even on what I assume is the simplest detail and just common sense from my experience. I have to remind myself that nobody has had my experience. So, because they had their experience.
It's so true. I mean, there's a part of human nature of that, but the reality is that's the tough part about being in construction. I'm sure you get this too. I've had conversations with clients, like, oh, I could do this myself, and, from the outside perspective, it's like, all you have to do is call the framer, get him to bid it, come out, get a drywall guy, get a, low voltage guy, get a cabinet guy, whatever, and you kind of follow this process. And, and they see one phase is done, you sequence the next one and so forth, expecting the trades know exactly what they're doing. And the problem is those that have built houses know that it never happens that way. And it's funny because even with the experience and knowledge that, our team has, and I'm not here to throw any of my team under the bus, but, it's easy for them to be complacent too, where they're so worried about getting the trades on their schedule, getting them there, getting shown up, sequence and get anything going, that we're like, hey, check what they're doing. Like, it's one thing, yeah, the trim carpenters showed up, the concrete guys are here, but to your point, are you checking hold downs? Are you checking, our structural engineering plan to make sure everything's correct? Because it is so easy for stuff to be missed or done wrong, to your point that one of the top builders, was missing flashing details. And I've seen that over and over. And, I've seen where they have a new window guy and he's caulking the bottom of a window, right? So it can't, just little things that you would not think about. And, that's going to cause an issue later down the road.
And the risk we take on by being the generals, I've never been able to get anybody who's, been employed by me to think like an owner. So, and the weight of the financial repercussions of that don't land on those installers, especially if they're in-house and so, like, those are the things that keep me up at night. Every time it rains, I'm staring at the ceiling wondering, what do I have exposed? What did they get that flashing on today when I was over there? Or did they leave something off? And that's the kind of the behind the scenes stuff that happens 24 hours a day for a lot of us builders. We don't get to shut it off.
It's funny that you say that. So I grew up in San Diego, and I know you're from the Bay Area, and we didn't get much rain growing up. So like when it rained, I loved it. Rainy day, chill at the house. Like, it was the best growing up. And now it rains, and I'm like, oh hell! Like, what windows were left open? Is all the flashing right? Where's the water leak coming in? In fact, just this morning before our podcast, we were checking the forecast, and now is going to hit our rain season in Phoenix with the monsoons. And Spence, our director, sends out a text. He said, guys, we got rain coming next week. Like, shut the hatches down. Like, be careful what's happening. It's, your perspective completely changes with, just little things like weather now.
Yeah. It's, we lived just south of the city in Half Moon Bay, and it was, year round, it's high of 65, low of 55. And if it got 80, everyone went to the beach. Like, it was hot. I surfed without a wetsuit a few times when it got to 80, because your body gets used to just being that cold. Coming to Louisville, it's 92 degrees and 80% humidity right now. But I haven't watered my lawn once in 3 years because it stays green all year round. Like, we don't, it rains so much, and there's so much moisture that I think about water so much more than I ever did in California. Like, we reacted to it. It's like, oh, it's raining. And when it's raining, it's been dry for so long. Now we're going to have mudslides. But here it's, you plan literally every day. What time's it raining tomorrow? What time is it going to be, in the morning or the night? It's in the afternoon. Okay, we're going to work our schedule around this little 2-hour window of rain. So even that takes more planning, and I'm not used to. I think I've kind of protected myself because I've stayed small here. I have some PTSD of having a much larger company, and so it's not as stressful. I'm not waking up going, what do I do with 11 guys today? I got a laborer and a 1099 project manager, / content creator / finish carpenter. And so they have other stuff they do. And so I text them this morning. I'm like, you guys want to take the day off? I got a bunch of stuff I got to do in the office. And they're like, thanks. Yeah. we're going to go do something else. And that feels good. I mean, I like to keep them employed, but it feels good that I'm not just burning up labor on something that I can't really oversee and make sure that it's being done right. But it has relieved a lot of stress not living in that environment anymore. By moving to Kentucky, which I never thought I would ever live in. Kentucky was not on a list of places that we were going to settle down at all.
Yeah, what makes you choose Kentucky?
Honestly, we left the Bay Area for multiple reasons, but on the business side, it got to the point where the juice wasn't worth the squeeze anymore. I lived there for 25 years. I met my wife there 12 years. 12 years, 13 years ago. And she had lived there for the same amount of time, or 99, 2000. And as a single person, you can make it work. It's really expensive, but you can make it work. And once we got married, we moved to Sacramento for about 2.5 years, and I could never find my groove there with the projects I wanted to do. That I was a sole operator. And so I started commuting back to San Francisco every day. Like, it's 100 miles and 2.5 hours, 3.5 hours in the morning, 2.5 hours at night. It was killing myself because I wanted to move back there. And so we ended up moving back to the Bay Area, but we now had 2 kids and we were down to a single income. And during COVID, I was a one-man show. At the start of COVID happened. There was more work than we knew what to do with. People were staying home and they're like, hey, we want you to build this $1 million renovation because we're not going anywhere for the foreseeable future. And we're both, tech executives, and we're here all the time and we have money to throw around. So it became overwhelming, the amount of work that we were getting and landing. And so we needed bodies. And so I just started hiring, and I did that for, I guess we left there in late to mid 2023. And so for 3.5 years, and I was burnt out. I was physically burnt out. I was working every day. My kids were telling me, kids were 5 and they're telling me, you're too tired. You never play with us. Look me in the eyes and just like gut punch, be like, Dad, you're never here. And even when you are, you're on your phone or your computer. You never play with us. You're always too tired. And like that, to have my 5-year-old son remind me of that multiple times, it took a while for me to hear him, even though he was saying it. And I had a breaking point on a project where I came to a more or less a full mental breakdown. And my wife just said, we don't have to live here. It's just a house. And 2 months later, the house was sold. We had our stuff put in a pod and hooked up the trailer and started driving across the country. And we were moving to Richmond, Virginia. We stopped in Louisville to visit a friend, decided to stay. And that was it. Like, we're here for 2 days and we fell in love and we're like, no, this will be it. This is where we're going to live.
That's amazing.
It's just, it's because he responded to a text the morning before, because we didn't know where we were going to go that night. We're like, hey, do we go to Indianapolis or Columbus or Louisville? And he responded. So we ended up in Louisville.
That's unbelievable. Louisville played. How's that been for your family relocating out there?
They tell us all the time. My kids tell us all the time. They're like, we wish we lived by the ocean still. I'm like, yeah, so do I. I wanted to surf for the rest of my life, but I got to the point where that wasn't worth sacrificing everything else. And we live in a neighborhood where my kids' bikes have been laying on the front lawn for 3 years and they have not been stolen. Where we lived on Highway 1 in California, the kids can play. There's a ton of neighborhood kids that are at our house all the time. They have great, the public schools, not that great, but the private schools and the alternative education are affordable and available here. Like, the cost of living it's going up, but it's manageable. Like, I don't feel the pressure that I have to work on Saturday and Sunday every day, every weekend anymore. And that's something that I never thought I would have. in my life. I felt like I always had to prove myself, even if I didn't need to. It's like, oh, I'm going to show my clients that I, am committed to their project, and I'll be there Saturday and Sunday and to get it done. And like, I don't think I mean, there wasn't ever a cost benefit to it. It didn't save me money. It just meant I was working for free on the weekends just to move the job forward. It was, there's just too much life being sacrificed. And this is a very small city for being a major city. So it did not take very long to establish myself and make a name for myself here.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it's hard to do that. I mean, what did you find to be, you settled down in Louisville. I mean, no connections. Like, how did you start getting work? How did you start, building a name for yourself quickly?
So about 6 months prior to being here, I actually went to another construction seminar in Austin, Texas, and I met a contractor, a remodeling contractor here. We sat at the same table and we just kind of chatted and had no real connection after that. But as I was coming through town, I texted him. He did not respond, but I took my company to Greenland to work for the National Science Foundation in 2015, 2016. And just so happened one of the engineers there bought this house in Louisville. And so he moved here. He responded to the text. And that's how we ended up. When I got here, I just started texting. I text my friend who's the contractor and said, hey, just some pointers on getting established, licensing, permit department. And he just kind of gave me the rundown on how to get through that. And then he had a finish carpenter bail on him. And he's like, hey, you want to do some finish carpentry on this project? I didn't care what the budget was or what they were going to pay. I just needed to do something. And so that I went over and did that project. And I met the tile guy on that job. And I just started making connections. And then I used Instagram. I started following the algorithm started introducing me to people in Louisville, and I just combed through it to see who was doing what. And I just started messaging them over and over and over. And now I have one of the best, if not the best, sub base I've ever had in my entire career. And I use them on every project. So they all know each other. Like, they communicate with each other, even if I'm not there. It's a whole different way of operating for me here. And I can stay small because I don't have to run so much through my company to survive.
I was going to say, it's just amazing though, because when I speak to builders that have moved to different areas, business development's one thing, which, there's different ways to your point. I mean, you're a really good networker, Gabe. I mean, look at the friendship we built, like, you're a great networker. So kudos to you there. You build relationships very fast. And I've seen where some builders have had success going into areas because there's a demand, right? I mean, there's just a demand for good builders, good remodelers. And if you're starting small, there's a huge need for, someone that could do a $50,000 job, a $200,000 job, whatever, as you're working up. But what's really hard for them is to find good trades because, trades have relationships. They have a certain pocket of GCs they're working for. And it's kind of hard to break into that and build like a good network in such a fast time. I think that's pretty unique to you in comparison to other builders I've spoken with over the years.
Yeah, it would be much more difficult if I was doing larger projects for sure. There's been gaps in the trades, in the subs that I have, and I fill in those gaps, which is not something that I want to do all the time. I love having my bags on still. But as I'm getting older, my body doesn't like it as much, but I love creating. And so I'm filling, as I take on these larger projects, I'm finding the subs to fill those gaps. But if I was going to go I had a $2 million like modern home presented to me, and my ego said, yeah, I got to do this house.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I sat with it they were very early in planning. And I sat with it for a month or two, and I'm like, nope, it's way too early. I don't have any trades that could handle this scope efficiently. It's the sub trades I'm using just aren't large enough to send 10 electricians, or, the landscaping alone was $500,000 above and beyond the build. So like it would have not been a profitable job for me, because I know that I would have been putting way more time and effort in to try to get my trades up to speed, or I'm going to be using new trades that I don't know, which means that my management's it's going to take too much effort. And so I just said, you know what, this is not the time for me. I'm probably another 2 years out from a project like this. And Gabe of 5 years ago would not have said that. I learned a pretty valuable lesson, even though it was the hardest lesson of my life when I left the Bay Area. I took a huge financial hit, and the red flags hit me in the face way sooner than they did back then. So if I could keep my projects smaller and manageable, and then slowly just kind of fill in those pieces with the sub trades that as they come up, I think that's the best balance for me as the kind of builder I want to be.
I love that. And I think probably the most admirable thing about that, I think, if I were in your shoes, it'd be really hard for me to turn down a signature project, right? Just thinking, hey, I can do it. I'll figure a way. I'll make it work. And I think that takes a lot of courage, because most of us would just chase a sale in a way. And hey, this is going to build my career. It's going to put me at my company, a different, basis. And to make a conscious decision that you're not going to do it because your company's not ready. You're not ready. You're building up, and you want to make sure you flourish when that opportunity comes. I think that's a rare attribute. The reason I bring it up is there's a builder who's in our builder 20, and he's retiring, and he always says, builders typically die of indigestion as opposed to starvation. And it made me think, because throughout most of my career, I mean, yes, I have a mentality of abundance, but I'm also a realist in construction, where I've lived through these downturns. In the 90s, we had it back in California. You had the dot-com bust, you had, the housing crisis in 2009. So you go through these ebbs and flows of construction. So it's almost like most builders are like, I'm going to take whatever job I can get. Like anything, I'm taking it all, because you don't know when that, faucet's going to shut off. And he would always say builders die of indigestion, which is true. I mean, most builders, subcontractors, they fail because they have too much work, not enough people. They don't have the systems in place. They're stretched. They think they're making money. They're not, because they don't understand cash flow. And there's so many layers. And it's, for someone that has a patient view of where they're at and good understanding, I think that is extremely rare in our industry.
Thank you. It's a lesson that almost killed me to learn. And I know that I've learned that I no longer want to go to work just to say I went to work. I would rather stay at home with my family and kids and not make any money than go to work and not make any money and have the stress of running this massive project. And I have other aspirations in life now than I did 5 years ago, where I want my life to go and what I want to be and what I want it to look like. And so, at the time it didn't fit in, and it may in a couple of years. I continue to work with the same designer. I have 3 projects with her. They're smaller projects, and they feel comfortable to me. But I knew that the main thing is I didn't have the systems and processes in place for that project in order for it to run efficiently. And it scares me when there's that amount of money involved. And hiring people right now is very scary to outsource a lot of this back end of my business stuff. So I'm keeping it small for now as I kind of fine tune this, tweak it to make sure to find the right balance of being able to still do a few projects my goal is to do 3 to 4 projects a year, very intentional projects, and then and pursue this other opportunity that's kind of shown up in my life recently, where raising awareness around mental health and construction. So I'm going to. It's scary because I'm not a public speaker, even though I love to talk. But this is something that's very near and dear to my heart. So it's a lived experience, and I want to do my part to help save as many lives and as I can in the trades. It's an epidemic that we have right now, and I want to bring more awareness and offer any kind of help and support I can to it. So
I love that. I mean, maybe speak about the mental health. I mean, why is that such a priority for you, Gabe?
So I'm a caretaker. I love to take care of people, and I've done it my entire life, to the point where I will financially take care of people that I'm not responsible for. You know, a client that can't afford something, oh, I'll just do this so I can get the project done, instead of being a builder who's running a profitable business and, you know, hold the line. And so I continue to put myself in these situations where I would give so much of myself to exhaustion and to a financial, I would take a financial hit because of it, but it was all about the project. How do I turn this project over? And the last project that I did before I left California, it was my biggest project to date in the Bay Area. And it was a second story addition. We were expanding the main footprint of the house, but we added a second story master suite that overlooked the ocean. And the clients were a friend of mine. The wife was a friend. I didn't know the husband. Well, technically we weren't married, but I did not know him, but I had known her for a long time. And I did something nobody should ever do, and I did not have them sign a contract that protected both of us. And then I let them set the budget for what the remodel was going to be, instead of me setting the budget. The project wouldn't have happened had I done that. But then material escalation costs were through the roof. That I was paying $120 a sheet for 1/2 inch, structural one plywood. And we didn't plan on that at the beginning when we were starting the project. And so I kept trying to find a way, okay, I'll make this up on the next line item. We'll tweak this other one and we'll be able to get some back. And the cost overruns just kept going and going and going. And we were having conversations. Yes, you got to increase your budget. You got to increase your budget. And we got it to a point where they ran out of money, and I didn't know because they didn't tell me. And I was leveraged by $250,000. And I had a mental breakdown because of this. And it became, it happened over a conversation of the hardwood floor we had to use a special vapor barrier that was included inside of the adhesive because we had a high water table next to the ocean. Well, because of that, we had to go through and fill all the gaps in the subfloor, which is like 1x10 pine original subfloor. So we had to cut out as much subfloor as we could because of this water table and put 3/4 down. And then we had to caulk and fill all of those and sand it. And it was like a $14,000 change order. And he looked me in the eye and said, I'm not paying it. I'm not paying you. That's your fault. After telling me they had no more money, and I just my eyes glazed over, and I got in my truck, and I don't remember driving home. I made it home. I crawled in the front door, collapsed on the ground, dragged myself into bed, just bawled for hours. My wife came up next to me and she just said, it's just a house. We don't have to do this anymore. And we sold our house. I paid off the business debt, shut the business down, paid off all my personal debt, and went across the country. And the silver lining in all of this, Brad, is that we were finally able to buy a house during COVID at the low interest rates, which we were saving for 20 years, and we just couldn't save fast enough. And because I did the remodel, I did a bunch of work on this house, we were able to have enough equity in it to shut the company down and pay off the debt, because I don't know what would have happened if I didn't have that. I was afraid of a lawsuit. I could have went into a lawsuit. I don't know if I would have won, and that scared me because I didn't have anything left to go fight. So I finished the house. They have a 100% finished house. I finished and turned it over because I didn't want to leave the state and have this thing hanging over me either. So I spent more money after that to finish it, knowing I was going to leave. But I know that I saved my own life by leaving, by doing it that way. Had I left and still had litigation or something back in California, like, I can honestly say I don't know if I'd be here. So it was that hard. So because of that experience and the ideations that I started to have that scared me, I was lucky enough to have resources and people to call and talk to and lean on, where a lot of men and women in the trades don't have that, or don't feel comfortable reaching out to somebody for help. We want to hold it in. And I had those resources, and I still didn't want to tell anybody because I had so much shame around it. While I did call people all the time, like I had one of my best friends checked in every 15 minutes for weeks. He would call me just to make sure I was still alive. And those are the kind of people I want to be that person for other people that can provide that level of just showing up for them, and to help ease this epidemic of mental health struggles that we all go through. I think, like, often we throw numbers around like it's monopoly money, like that. The numbers don't mean anything, because the stress is the same for a $400 project as it is for a $4 million project. If there's no money, there's no money, and you're trying to figure it out. And so everybody has a story. Everybody's going through something. And, I feel like I have this responsibility now to provide a space where people can voice that and get it out. The pressure is released when you can say it out loud to somebody in a safe environment. And then that's where working through it and the healing happens. And so, it's still raw, even 3.5 years later, but it is something that I feel I need to pursue. And it's an opportunity that came up with, conversations 7 months ago in Chicago. Like, never thought I'd have an opportunity to do anything besides building houses and remodeling for people. And this whole other world has opened up, that I am jumping into with both feet, because I don't need to prove to anybody that I can build a house anymore. And I'm like, my ego is letting go of that, which that's a hard thing to do too.
It's interesting perspective, because the thing is, Gabe, like, it's lonely, the entrepreneurship road construction. I've said this many times on the podcast. People are probably tired of it, but you meet someone in construction, design, architecture. I'm like, hey, there's like instant bond because of it. It's just tough. It's really tough. And, that's the point of this podcast. That's the point of a lot of the content we do out there, right? And the summit and other things in the industry, because there's just a lot of, difficulty in what we do. And there's a lot of stress. Like, the example you gave, I think what's hard about being a contractor is, that gun barrel's always pointed at you, right? Whether it's, design flaws, architectural flaws, plan bust, the trade's not performing, and of course we're not innocent. There's things that we've done in the process, but I'd say in general, it's the contractor that's left holding the bag at the end, right? Of things that happen. And, and clients can be tough that way on, their expectations. And, so many builders I know have been at the end of a project and short paid, and it's, do I chase good money, spend good money to chase bad money, in the sense that if they're going to pay me, well, now I'm going to spend a ton of attorney fees and like that, and you end up walking away, and it's a tough thing as a builder. And so that's why conversations and education, all these things really help to put us in a mindset where we could communicate better, set expectations, have better systems and operations, and, the best we can. And, you're building this model home, this, that's never been built before. I mean, typically most stuff you're doing, remodel, new build, it's never been done. It's not a factory line. You're building like a mock-up right there on the spot that people are watching and, under the scope.
I often, in fact, I met with my buddy here, who's the remodeler that I reached out to when I got here. Met with him yesterday for a minute, and we were talking about this. And he's like, I could never do what you do. He's like, I would quit before I did projects that you pursue. Like I pursue projects that test me. I need to solve problems, creative problems, to like feel like I'm doing my craft. And he is the exact opposite. He's like, no, I need to not have a project change, at all from start to finish, so I can have a very regimented schedule and protect that profit at the end. And we still have the same stresses regardless. So like I don't think that anybody is, as a business owner, is protected from feeling that that heaviness that comes along with being solely responsible. And to what you said, like, that's the worst feeling in the world, not being able to complete a project, because I take it personally. Like every job I'm connected to, and like every single one of my projects is like building a Bugatti one piece at a time, except for that we're making those one pieces too. Like, and the kind of circling back to what we talked about first is like trying to relay that to a client in Louisville has been so much harder than the Bay Area, where money was just thrown around more loosely. Like here, there's wealth here, but they just beat me up to spend it, like to get their expectations versus the money they want to spend for it is harder. Yet it takes the same amount of effort as it did in the Bay Area. And I honestly, I'm tired of having to work that hard to explain what I'm doing over and over and over, which is why I want to only do 2 or 3 projects a year, to try to just kind of let my nervous system reset. And also, it's practicing what I preach. My mental health is not good if I'm trapped in these cycles of dealing with bad clients with terrible budgets.
It's so different. I mean, when you think about, because even no matter what, everyone has a budget, right? But to your point, there are some areas of the country where it's a little bit different. The Bay Area, Silicon Valley tech company is going to be a little bit different. Yeah, they're still, as you've seen from that experience, they're still going to grind you on some things, right? But, so they are cost conscious, but at the same time, the budget's different, and which allows, in some cases, even if they're really strict about not to exceed or certain amounts, typically when you have a better budget, you can have better staff, you can have, better trade partners and so forth. And when you're kind of fighting a limited budget, you're really limited to a lot of angles. And so it's definitely a different balance, from where you're at now.
Yeah. And I only do projects that have gone through a designer. So there's already an expectation of like, yeah, I'm going to spend $30,000, $40,000 for a, $250,000 kitchen renovation, because I'm going to spend that before anything even happens on design fees. And so they already know that there's costs involved to the planning. I don't do projects unless pre-construction's involved, because I don't want to work. Well, no one likes working for free, but it's also establishing that there's a value to it before we even come in and start tearing your house apart. And we've walked away and lost a couple jobs in the last month because that didn't happen, didn't check the boxes. And I wake up feeling good in the morning because I didn't get myself in a situation where, I'm going to be negotiating to get paid.
Which is huge. And one thing I want to touch on too, Gabe, because this goes back to the networking and the skill set you have. I've seen where, to your point, your career has been focused on the brand and company, and now you're doing things outside of that. Continuing education, public speaking. Your mental health is a big thing you're pushing, and that's you're a brand ambassador now for different brands out there. How did that window open up? How has that changed maybe your outlook on you, your family, business?
So Instagram is a funny world. I 2.5 years ago, I was going to Chicago. In fact, the weekend I got this Cubs hat, and I messaged Allie with Integral Builders, and I said, I want to see one of your projects, just randomly. Like, I didn't think she'd respond. 5 minutes later, great, do it. Let's do it Monday. Let's have lunch. And that meeting, like within 15 minutes of having lunch with Allie, like we're bawling sitting at a shawarma place in Ukrainian village in Chicago, I'm telling her my story. And we had this instant bond. And I ended up in Chicago because I'm, again, messaged Allie. I'm like, I want to go to your hosting for the back end of the Willis Tower tour. And she's like, really? I'm like, I don't know. Is it an option? She's like, hold please. And a week later I was in Chicago for the summit. And that first night, I think it was the first open mic night that you guys had on, like, the opening night cocktail party, where a bunch of contractors got up and shared their the hardest moment of being in this trades, or one of their biggest losses. And while I've shared my story, in smaller circles, I'd never shared it in a public space like that. Shout out to Reese Barnes with Adaptive for kept pushing me to do it. But it kind of broke something in me where, like, I'm a very emotional guy. I feel like I need to cry at least once a day to get the pressure out now. And I just felt comfortable being in a place where 50 other people could understand where I'm at and what I experienced. And it kind of just took off from there. I felt comfortable sharing. And then I met up with all of you guys at IBS, talked deeper with a bunch of the people I had met, and then doing it again, going to Denver. I made this decision that I was going to keep showing up for accountability for myself. It's easy for me to come in hot and heavy and then slide back into the old ways of doing things, because it feels scary or out of my comfort zone. So I made the reservation right after I left Chicago for Denver, because I'm like, this is how I'm going to hold myself accountable to keep pursuing this. And then Morgan Molitor and I had a conversation in Denver, and we had this aha moment of how we could connect and take this mental health awareness to the next level. So we're in planning on the relaunch of Resilience Through Reform, which will be pursuing this epidemic that we have going on in the trades.
That's amazing. And so, I, again, not for the purpose of, this podcast out there, but, I think you've been through some interesting things, Gabe, in your life, some really tough times. And, there's something about that when, some use it as resentment, some use it as a way to inspire others. And, the way to inspire others and, bring advocacy into a tough topic. I mean, it takes a lot to do that. It takes a lot of, I can imagine, inner healing and, just the journey you've been on to be able to be in that position to do that.
Yeah, there's unfortunately and fortunately, I've had a few traumatic experiences in my life that have kind of shaped me to be open to share. Once I finally hit the point where I could share it to another person. I mean, I've kept something that happened to me as a child for 17 years, didn't tell a single person. And when I finally told somebody, they said, yeah, that happened to me and I never told anybody. And then it kind of was like, oh, that happened to me and never told anybody. And breaking that, letting them have a place to say, yeah, that happened to me. I feel comfortable enough saying it. And it's now taking that same approach to the mental health side of things. Like, if my traumatic experience me going through what I went through helps one other person survive theirs, then what I went through was for a reason. And it's still, I think it will still always be a very raw topic, and I want it to be, because I don't want it to feel like I'm just hearing myself talk about this. But there's so many layers to this onion that still need to be peeled back for me too, as I still see a therapist. I still talk about it regularly, and there's still things that come up. I'm like, oh, I've never thought of that before. That memory didn't pop up before. So let's dive into that. And it's just, so it's a constant, it's work. It's like going to work every day. It's, it never goes away. It just needs constant attention. And, if I can be of any service to this industry other than doing a remodel inside someone's house and having to absorb that energy, then I think my life experiences, and what I went through it's for good. The silver lining in it is that there is a way to help people by sharing these experiences. And I will say that I don't know if this opportunity would have ever even made its way into my mind had I not been in that room at the summit. So I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for how the stars aligned, and it's been a whirlwind, but it's also super exciting to have this whole other avenue that I can pursue and also provide for my family. That's like, I've always kept myself safe in this bubble. Like, hey, I got to work. I got to do construction to provide. And there are other ways to do things in this world and still have a meaningful life outside of just building houses.
Do you feel that it strengthened you or distracts you, doing both?
You mean doing building and the mental health?
Yeah, doing building and like consulting and advocacy.
I think that they feed into each other. So, because I'm more aware of like, hey, if I actually dive into using all the software that I own and build those systems and processes that are strong and that back me up, I don't have anybody else behind me when I go have a hard conversation with a client. There's no other person that's there for support, but my software and my systems and processes will support me. But if I don't spend the time doing it, then I know that I'm going to keep myself in this anxiety bubble around it. So like I'm listening to my own advice finally, and it's not perfect, but I think one is strengthening the other. I'm going to run a better business if I am constantly aware about my mental health and where I stand, and vice versa. So, but I'm also trying to create a balance between the two and let the clients actually know, hey, if you want a fast builder, I'm not it. Like, I have this other thing that's super important to me, and I'm not going to budge on it either. Like, this is a responsibility that I have. So your job might take 2 weeks longer because I'm going to have these other responsibilities that I got to do. And I have a job right now. I'll be going up to CCS in Minneapolis and Charlotte, and it's both on it's on the schedule for their project. I'm like, I'm not going to be here for these 3 days. And they're like, okay. Yeah.
That's amazing. So what keeps you up at night?
Rain, cash flow. It is getting to the and maybe this is a pipe dream, but like getting to the point where we have a level of comfortability in our family financially where, I mean, we took a big hit. It's way easier to live here, but still it's like this constant, like that feeling around money is still like, feels like scarcity for me. It's always has been. That's another podcast for another time. But like, that is, like, I feel a transitioning happening around it. Like that I just want to get to the point where life feels more comfortable for me and my family. So then we can do things as a family, because there's a lot of times where we have to make decisions where, oh, I'm going to go do this, or we can't go do that experience for the kids because of, the client didn't pay that bill on time, and it's now 30 days late, and I have to go chase this cash flow down. And if I'm not relying on one sole stream of income, like, it gives me the opportunity to actually attain that balance in life, whatever that means for a builder. I don't know a builder that has balance, but that's my brain is constantly, especially now with all these new opportunities, my brain is constantly thinking and brainstorming on how I can pursue this. I after CCS, especially in Denver, like, I just started asking for what I wanted, which has never been something that I've ever done in my life. Like, hey, I want to be involved in the next seminar, and I want to talk about mental health. And Morgan's like, okay, we'll make that happen. And I would have just waited around for somebody to give me an opportunity. And what's the worst you can say? No. So I appreciate all of you for inspiring me to just step out of this other bubble that I've protected myself with. And so, yeah, it's, I think just being the present dad and husband that I can be, and the father that I can be, is the most rewarding thing. But it also, I'm in constant pursuit of it, and so I think I'm staring at the ceiling for that too at night. So,
man, that's amazing. Well, Gabe, I mean, it just shows your authenticity, the sincerity. I mean, just incredible. I appreciate the friendship. I know there's more to come, and shameless plug for those listening. Come listen to Gabe in Charlotte at the Coalition Summit. There's a lot he has to share that I'm sure will impact a lot of people. So thank you for making time today.
Thanks, Brad. I really appreciate it.